So, we've been in the ESA film, well, I've been in the ESA film for 2 years, and you've been for 4, which is your last year.
Yeah.
Which is, yikes.
Yeah.
You started grade 9 with killer films, but do you think you've grown since then?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, every film was an experiment that kind of, even in making it, it evolves as you make it, and you learn from the every moment and different stages of making the films. But it's also, COVID was a very isolating time because film is extremely collaborative, inherently collaborative. But COVID made it so the first 2 years, grade 9 and 10, were more or less individual. And I think that was good and bad for my development. But definitely a lot of the film program's design is hinged around collaborative work and building a bigger network in the school and with fellow film students. So it was hard on the teachers' curriculum, it was hard on the students' learning. But I think we all developed very strong personal strengths and emerged for grade 11 and 12 to be able to come out and help each other, and that was a really big part of the last 2 years. And I think I still have a lot to learn in that department going forward.
Well, do you think that the teachers of film are going to continue that kind of philosophy and teaching throughout the next generation?
I hope so. I think it's fundamental to the program's success. Collaboration is very important, not just with filmmakers though, with actors, the school having access to student actors, musicians, artists. These are really big parts that make our films, that elevate everyone else's films. And having that network is not just a network for high school, it can go relationships beyond high school if you're pursuing any form of art, really. And yeah, I have friends in every major and have tried to use a lot of those resources in making things. If you're starting cinematography and you want the sound to be just as strong, or you want the editing techniques to communicate the same way that your shot does, that's a really hard thing to do as one person. And I think it would be the wrong approach to sit in your room going down a spiral of that, as opposed to opening up to your friend who plays the piano, who's also in film, or who isn't, because that just elevates everybody's work so much more. And
you think it's going to be a burden to them, but really it's just
people are excited to help.
People want to be in it.
I
People
learn
want to
that
be involved.
every day. Every day I realize people think what we're doing, and just as I do, that what other people are doing is cool. And that's very contagious.
Yeah.
Being in this environment with all these creative people, and they're so different. And that's also a shame of losing the auditions, is teachers got to select very distinct students in order to really bring different skill sets and knowledge points and learning curves to the table to help other students. It's a dynamic. It's a building of dynamic, and the whole school is doing that collectively with the selection of students. Yeah, looking back at the audition was a very good taste of the different elements, the different aspects that a film program requires from you, but also to get you interested in what we're doing from the outside, because it's such an abstract thing. Film, what is film program?
How do you question a lot? What do you even do?
Yeah, what do you do in film? Is it just is it a weird
just
small...
watch movies?
Yeah, what do you just watch movies? But it's way more than that. Film incorporates every single art form we have developed to this date, and it can do much more with all of them, including with the power of all of them. So how do you approach building a 4-year high school curriculum around such a huge thing that's very young too, right?
In my opinion, they really succeed at the arc of it.
Yes. By the time you get to grade 12, definitely it becomes intense in more ways than just one area or another. There's it's writing heavy, it's filmmaking heavy, it's film theory heavy, but they all lend to each other. It's not they're pulling down another. And I feel the writing exercises we do and analytical work we do and the philosophical work we do around film, studying film, like doing film seminars in class, like students presenting things to other students, that just gets more ideas in the air and influences us more. Well, you learn to balance a team, you learn to balance expectations, you learn to balance yourself within that framework. You learn to work with others and how each discipline interacts. You learn way more about the area that you're not specifically trained in, like the acting or the music. So you're really, like, everyone's building each other up and everyone's helping each other out just by collaborating. And by the networking being that much easier, that it's within your school, it's your friends from lunch that you talk to as well, but you can also work on your film. Or you can help them. And I think that's a very powerful tool and something that is developed as something we do in high school. It's a very interesting skill to develop early. Even if it's not film you're going into or whatever, this is a very important inherent factor of life that needs to be reconciled, whether you're a social being or not. And
realize you can't be good, you can't be great at everything.
Yes.
Reach out to the people who are great at that particular.
Yeah.
And then the film will be fantastic. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Being ambitious is important too. Like, I'm overly maybe ambitious, but it's gotten me places that like I wouldn't have dreamed of being, and that could be from getting a certain location for your film, or a certain person, or a certain concept, or a technique, whatever it is that you're pursuing. Obviously manage expectations and know how to make things more realistic, and in the making of things and producing a lot of things you will learn that inherently, but also thinking outside the box and allowing yourself to dream a little bit always makes for more dynamic and complicated things and more interesting things.
I do want to thank Johnson and Morgan for one thing.
One thing. Only one.
Only one. No. But because we all grew up watching feature films, we know they need a lot of plot. Johnson and Morgan helps me realize simplifying it and having a simple story adds so much more and makes it so much easier to digest as an audience. And like when we first come here, we're like, okay, I want to do this, and then there's going to be this scene, and then there's going to be this, and then there's just going to be total. But really, it's a 2-minute.
Less speaks more.
Less speaks more.
Yeah, and we operate almost solely in short films because, first of all, there's no capacity for the festivals to screen films that are longer than, like, even 15 minutes is way too long now with the population of students. Of course, there can be director's cuts, and there often is, but there's a discipline of making it concise and beautiful in its simplicity and saying much more through that. And they kind of train you, and even though that can work for and against you in different situations, as an overall approach, it makes you realize what is necessary and not necessary, and ultimately strengthens the bones of what you have as a film and as a process of creating in general. That I think has really strengthened my. You asked me earlier, like, what have you learned? And I think that's a really crucial skill. Is like, how do you simplify and still get these complex and nuanced ideas across? You have to communicate better through all the different things that you're incorporating. You have to simplify things. You have to structure them better. Everything has to have an intention. Every single thing involved in the production needs to have a very good reason for being there. And that is instilled in you from the get-go of entering the film program, and is really, really important for generating strong, distinct imagery, films, ideas.
No, they're
stories.
very strict with, like, cutting down footage to reach that time limit. But they also, what I do like is when it needs it, they say, okay.
It needs it.
But they will, you can't press for that. You have, they will tell you.
It needs to be justified.
It needs to be justified.
You have to earn that extra minute before it makes it to the festival.
Do you have any words of wisdom for grade 9s in order to set them in that path that you went down?
Make mistakes. You can't go into something thinking that things are going to play out the way you have in your head. And definitely like trying to give yourself as much room for making mistakes as possible, having test shoots, having storyboards, multiple storyboards, shot lists, and asking for help. I'm really bad at that personally, and I think like the resources of Mr. Johnson and Mr. Morgan, the two film teachers, and now Ms. Hamilton, are immense. Like their knowledge is just crazy, and like areas of interest that cover vast amounts of different sectors. Like you would not believe how much you can get out of them, but not only the teachers, but also fellow students or other people in the school. Like I said, like there's so much you can take from that community, and not being scared, even if you're shy, to reach out, making a lot, doing a lot of projects, even outside of school, during the summer or during March break. If you're really into it, it's worth to get your own camera and really experiment.
I personally feel that like the film program has built up expectations, but not treating us like kids has really amplified
Yes.
how we expect to go into the future, like how we're gonna anticipate and how we're gonna survive.
Yes,
Putting us to an adult standard really helps, I think.
I totally agree with you, May. Like that is what makes the film program, I think, so strong. And in the past, that high standard has been above university standards, like locally at least, because there is so much trust in students and in their ideas, and like the philosophy of the film program is really to develop strong concepts and accomplish those, then take that foundation of a strong story and a unique story and find unique ways to show that thematically through cinematography, editing. These are things that can be learned in the making of a film, as opposed to in a classroom where you can get help facilitating building your script, making a story stronger. And having that stronger foundation is key. Like without that interest of the student, that it's not a teacher imposing their ideas or their prompt or the same film that someone made last year onto you, that you're able to come with a fresh understanding, and have that be facilitated in an environment where that can build from other people, but still it's yours. It makes, one, the students much more motivated, and two, the film's much more interesting. And it almost doesn't matter what it looks like, because it's coming from a truer place, and that really affects, I think, the filmmaking. Without that, I don't think we would have much to stand on. And also, it enhances your learning way faster, I think. To give you the trust off the bat, first film you make, you start in September as a grade 9 student, your 60-second film, and you're just off the ground running. Like, you have support and everything, but you're thrown into it. And that is always, I think, the best way to learn anything, is to just go into the deep end and trust the thing that is yourself, and that is your idea, and build from there. But even just in the classroom dynamic, treating students like their ideas about films in general, not just their own stuff, are valid and interesting to discussion, and facilitating that kind of student-teacher dynamic is a very powerful thing. And certainly we're very, the grade 12s, are very proud of ourselves, I feel, because we're all admiring of each other in the things we see in class, the films we make outside of class, the way we contribute to the school in general, the things we do outside of film. Like, this translates so well into everything, not just like other subjects in school, but in life. And I find it a really strong teaching just in general. Like, you can become a lawyer, and the things you learn in film class, you'll be thinking about every day, I think. So yeah, totally agree with you about giving us responsibility.
Do you think the film program doesn't only help you contain those skills, but also helps you get into the next place, like applying to schools,
Yes.
and finding out your true future instead of just the ideal?
Yeah. Grade 12, more than the film program, also Mr. Norbeck, the photography teacher at our school, they're all really important to the grade 12 year, because they're kind of like a support team for students, not just for university, but even gap years, figuring out how you're gonna earn money, if that's the way you want to go, or like travel or whatever. Even that, the first thing you talk to our grade 12 teacher, Mr. Johnson, about is your future when you come back from the grade 11 summer. And like, I started last September in a place that was that is so juxtaposed to where I am going now, and that's only because I had the support of the film teachers, the photography teachers, and the infrastructure they built into the curriculum, like Portfolio Day, which is like a website-based portfolio that you can share with schools, and attracts certain institutions to you, and is a great way to build a portfolio if you don't have one yet. But also just general application things, getting reference letters. But beyond the logistical things, preparing you for what you want to do, and making sure that that's exactly where you need to go, and even if that's only for 1 year, or if that's a 5-year plan, that's built into all 4 years, because all of this builds toward structuring like strong students. I totally feel like I wouldn't be going to do what I am doing next year literally without the film program.
Well, let's talk about what you're doing next year. You're going to Denmark
Yeah.
for a year, and then you're going to New York to Cooper Union.
Cooper Union.
So what does that look like?
I wasn't even going to do university, but I ended up applying to film programs and fine art programs in the States, in Europe. This film program in Denmark is kind of a boot camp for film, and it's kind of, you take certain electives, you learn about editing and documentary filmmaking. Like, there's just different courses, and then it's very collaborative work, and it's international, but mostly Danish, and I'm Danish, so you would be
Really?
I would be immersed, but also, and then it's a great way to get into the industry, make connections with classmates and with people who come in from the actual industry, film industry in Denmark and beyond, guest visitors. So it's a very strong program. And then Cooper Union is kind of like an alternatives foundational art program, and they're very famous. So, and I think even just simply being in New York would be a really great way to spend my early years, and like getting involved in the art scene, learning from students who aren't doing film, who are doing sculpture or painting. How does that inform my work as a filmmaker, as an artist? Like, I don't need to do just one thing with film. And that's still an evolving idea. I don't really know what that looks like yet, and that's what I would want to figure out. But yeah, the film program like encourages you to experiment film more ways than just a projection on a screen. Like, you can really do a lot more with it, and I think and they include that in the films we study, the work we study, and in the discussions, and like what we're allowed to create is really limitless, which again goes back to like treating us like adults, treating us like we're artists already, before we feel like we are, maybe, because it gives you the power to really be individual about it. So what do you think the film philosophy, ESA film philosophy is?
It's not fair. I'm not in grade 12. I think it's a lot of pressure, because I know Johnson's gonna judge me on this, but I think it's to like not listen to them all the time, but also listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a sense, like, they're gonna give you the structure, but they're eventually building you up to have this own style and this own like thing, so that you're able to say,
Yeah.
this is what I'm gonna do, thanks, but no, not just to them, but to other people too. Like, build your own path and all that jazz.
And I would add to that they learn you. Like, they learn, okay, this is a person I can push a little further than others. Like, this person needs that harsher criticism, or that extra bit of input, or this person will break down and not trust themselves if I push them this way. So I'm going to refrain from this. They're going to find it on their own. Like, there's different, like that. They're
really
both so good at learning people and understanding the limits, and that's just a fine line between good films, bad films, and developing stronger work.
No, I think that's their main kind of just like build you up as a person and as an artist, and in any way, shape, or form, wherever you're going.
In the class dynamic, like expecting everyone to talk, share art, and like appreciate when art is shared, so that like when you show a piece of art and no one talks, it feels shitty. But if the whole class is talking, then everyone will talk. And the dynamic between the teachers, the joking but seriousness, and the like honesty that they tell you and they give to you, it holds a great dynamic.
Yeah.
And I think we really grew from that.
Well, that's what is a shame about losing the audition, is like they're identifying storytellers, they're identifying like students who might not know anything about film, but do have a keen sense of like, or ideas of story and like wanting to share. And I think especially in the lottery system now, taking the 2 courses all the way throughout, dedicating yourself to film is like the best thing you could do. I came into film as basically a visual arts background, with very little experience, like a passion for film and a passion for storytelling and all these things, and a knowledge per se, but not especially, like I hadn't done it before really. So it was a lot of faith in that this program was going to allow me to pull in different parts of myself. And I was even recommending a grade 9 who's in the program now, who had no experience with film, to apply to film, as I found it the stronger program, even to
You
facilitate.
recommended it at the time it was grade 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like before he even knew about the program. And I think it's really working out because you can experiment in so many different ways than just one. It's a broader facilitation of things, but also very focused and able to really you can really narrow in as well. So taking the 2 courses all the way through gives you the strongest chance of that focusing and of the teacher learning you. Like the teachers learn not only that you exist on a name on the attendance, it's far more like, it's like they know your voice, they want to help you build that voice, the artistic voice.
Well, it almost seems like obvious that you need to go through all this, because if you take another, let's say you have a classmate who took 4 years and then you only took 2 years, your last 2 years as a film major. This classmate is going to hold so much more upper level information, and how is Johnson going to explain to half the class who didn't take those 2 years with him and get them up to chase and hold them to the same expectations?
Yes.
There's a whole learning arc that they've developed and we've talked about.
Well, and it's not just about you, right? It's about the class as a holistic structure, and like enforcing a strong class structure enforces strong filmmakers.
It also
period.
gets rid of that class, the major tightness dynamic. If new kids are in your classroom every year, you're never going to trust them enough to share your art, talk about your opinion, and like fully be yourself. It's always going to be, what do these people think?
It's going to be harder.
It's going to be way harder.
Well, and even on yourself to pivot like that, and pivot in a kind of non-directional way, would be difficult. And having a teacher who knows you and has known your arc and is building toward the class arc as well at the same time is like, even if you're not operating in like a specific cinematic way, I think it's a much better opportunity of learning. And I think the film program is beautifully structured but also open for the student to make up their own way through it, navigate their own way through it. So it's a really interesting balance that goes in between these kind of self-directing, like directing, but also being guided by students and teacher, which is kind of absent in other majors and in other schools, obviously. As the last group of students who did portfolio application, you guys, grade 10s, I mean, what are you guys going to do to reach back into the younger grades who have not been filtered through like that, and are ultimately experiencing a different program? There should be a social way in which the old world can interact with the new world, to try and bring that back.
And I think that's what Morgan is trying to do.
Yeah.
Is showing us and our enthusiasm to them. They'll like like he's introducing us, him and Miss Hamilton are introducing us to music and sound and experimental film and how to write scripts and how to work with actors in such wonderful ways.
Yeah.
And I think it's really like, I don't know how they're reacting to it. I've only met them like twice and only talked to them a few times, but I think it's good, and I think it's gonna like result in them coming to us for help, hopefully, like a book buddy system.
Yeah.
But like I remember in grade 9, some of your classmates came up to me and told me without me needing to ask, hey, if you need any help, I'm here, I can help, which is great, because that like kind of sets the door open that it's like, it's okay for help. It's okay. We're
and
here.
we're a community.
Yeah.
Like we should
We
build
don't
this
hate each other.
together. And definitely before COVID, like there was collaboration with the dance majors, with the music majors. Like it was much more intentional intertwinings of art forms, disciplines, ways we can interact, but also within the major, people being on film sets of older students and vice versa. And even in the pre-production, post-production. So the fact that that's kind of dissipated, I'm hoping building that back up after COVID and after this lottery thing can be a way forward in this new kind of dynamic, which is a little messy, I would say.